Hey guys, it's Robin, RsIslandCrafts, and welcome to my craft room. This is WiP It Wednesday for Wednesday, August 29th, 2018. I did get to do a little bit of work on my tree. I have got all the facing stitched down to the front and folded over to the back. Now I just have to find the time to actually sit down and hand stitch it all down. I haven't started sewing any of it yet. And as you can see, it has some wrinkles. I just need to make sure that these are all ironed out so that they'll all be tucked underneath there if there's any extra fabric. And it'll be nice and smooth on the back. And there's the front. I do have all my clips down just to hold it. I don't always use the clips when I go to hand sew them down, but I went ahead and I pressed this with the iron, and I wanted to make sure that it held it so that the black didn't pop over to the front. So I went ahead and put some clips in it, so while it's sitting there waiting for me to finally get to it, it'll kind of hold that crease down nicely for me. Now, since I finished Robbie's pair of socks, the rainbow ones, I had to start a new pair for him. I try to always keep a pair of socks on the needle for him. Socks are great to knit on when you're out traveling and stuff, when you're forced to sit somewhere like at the pharmacy waiting for a prescription, because there's nothing else that can really gather your attention. I don't like wandering around the store and buying things or looking at things. I'd rather just spend that time sitting and knitting. So I try to always keep a pair of socks on hand for him. Now I'm knitting them a little bit differently than you've seen in the past. I've decided this time to go back to the original way I started knitting socks. I'm knitting them both at the same time, which means I have both socks. I have only got the barest of a toe on, but both socks are on the same pair of needles, and I'm knitting them. This is what's called 2 at a time magic loop. Magic loop because you see you have this loop over here, and magically you can knit socks on it. Or you can knit anything. You can knit fingerless gloves, mittens, anything that you're going to be able to do in the round and 2 at a time. So I was given this yarn, thank you very much, and Robbie chose this one. I was given a couple different socks yarns to try for Robbie, and he chose this color, which is... This has got, it's got a gray and a medium and a darker purple in it. This is the Deborah Norville. It's a Serenity sock weight from Premier Yarns. I've never used this before, but I've seen it at Joann's. It has 50% superwash merino wool, 25% bamboo, and 25% nylon. So the nylon will allow it to stretch so that when it goes over your foot, it'll stretch, and then it'll bring itself back to hold on tightly to your foot. The bamboo makes it a little bit softer, and this is a lot softer than some of the other yarn that I've used for him because he really needs a good, strong workhorse yarn. And then the 50% superwash merino wool. It's wool because a lot of time people like their socks to be made of wool. It helps keep them warm. We don't have problems. We don't wear too many wool socks down here normally because it doesn't get that cold in Florida. But from what I understand is if you wear them in like your snow boots and stuff, it helps protect your feet and it whisks away the sweat so that you don't have any problems, and it keeps the water off of your feet. Now the superwash merino wool, as you might guess, it allows it to go through the washer and the dryer. And one of the things I've learned about superwash wool, now regular wool, you're going to hand wash it, you're going to lay it all out flat or hang up your socks to dry, and they're going to air dry naturally. Superwash wool actually likes the washer and dryer. If you were to hand wash these all the time, from what I've heard, is eventually your socks will get a little bit loosey-goosey on your foot and they really won't be that tight anymore like when you first started. But if you run them through the washer and dryer, there's something about the way the fibers are made that they'll kind of like grip each other again, and then they'll tighten up. I don't want to say shrink, but if they are a little loosey-goosey, they will shrink back up and tighten to the original size that you knit them. So that's a really good feature of the superwash wool. Oh, this color is amethyst. So like I said, it takes quite a while to, when you're doing the 2 at a time socks, to get the little toes going. As you can imagine, putting them both on the same needle, they get a little bit tangled with the yarn, and it's hard to kind of get them going. But once you get past once you get past the toe on these socks, it's just going to zoom right along, and I'll be able to knit them. I'm not sure. I'm doing a little test to see if it's faster to knit them this way at the same time, or it's faster to knit them one at a time. I'd stopped knitting them 2 at a time magic loop because as a new sock knitter, I was getting a little bit confused. I put my stitch markers on the front so I know the front of both of these socks. But if you stop after you knit one sock, or you stop halfway through somewhere, you might not always know. I mean, I know which direction I'm going because of wherever the yarn comes out. But sometimes you might get confused front and back and where you're at. And as a new sock knitter, it did get a little confusing for me. So that's why I stopped and went and started knitting his socks concurrently. One on one needle, one at the other. You know, like I knit one toe and then I go onto the other sock and knit the other toe. I knit some here and knit some there. This one's going to ensure that both socks, unlike the last time with the rainbow socks, both socks will be the exact same length, whether it's right or wrong, when I'm done. Because you're knitting them at the same time. I've also went ahead and put the... Oh, before I forget, I always forget to tell you this. I knit his socks toe up, obviously. When I get to it, I will be doing the Flegel heel. But we can talk more about that later, when I actually get to the heel. I also worked on my Halloween spider Halloween. My Halloween spider little mini wall hanging. Once again, I sewed the facing down, got it all pressed, put all my little clippies on. So when I can sit down and have a marathon of just hand stitching them down, I'll probably do them both at the same day. I almost said the same time. You can't sew two things at once. So once I get those done, I want to try to make sure I have these done before I move on to the next. I say try. I don't know. We'll see what the week brings. I did get a little bit more work. Well, it's going to look like a lot to you guys. And it is. It's a decent amount of work on my shawl. This is the Super Eyelet Shawl by the Woolly Brew. The last time you guys saw it was at this little stitch marker. So this is where I started. And then, you know, you're working in this little bit of a V triangle situation here. So I've knit from here to here. I've already started on the lace now, so next time you see it next week, you'll be able to see the lace pattern a little more. It's starting to take a little bit longer now because in the beginning, as you can tell, when you're just doing a few little stitches here and there, it goes a lot faster. But then the more you go, because you're adding stitches on at different intervals, the more you get bigger and bigger, it's going to take you a little bit longer to get each row done. And I try to never set a shawl down for like overnight. I may set it down to go work on dinner or something, but I try not to put it back in the bag unless I've done a complete, finish everything on my needles one round, whether it's on the front or the back. It can get a little confusing sometimes when you're doing lace projects, when you come back the next day or even a week or two later to kind of remember where you're at. And then you end up having to tink all the way back to the beginning of the row, and I don't want to put that extra time in. Once again, this is from Hobby Lobby. I picked up some Lion Brand yarns. This is the ice cream. It is in the cookies and cream colorway. It's a fine weight. It's the next step up. Robbie socks are a 1. This is a 2. But I'm doing it on size 8 needles from Chow Goose, so that gives it this nice drapey feel. Now, even though this is an acrylic yarn, once it's all done, I'll give it a little bit of a wash and I'll kind of semi-block it out. And it'll go ahead and even out some of these stitches. Like you see, there's... Sometimes as you're knitting, you get a little stitch that's stretched out a little bit. And once I go ahead and wash that and semi-block it, or I'll probably try to steam it this time, it'll even everything out and it'll make everything look a lot neater and a lot crisper. This is going to be a gift. I'm not exactly 100% sure if the person I would like to give it to would like it, but I do have a couple people in mind. So if one person's not that happy with it, I do have an idea for somebody else. Even down here in Florida, I like to give shawls as gifts because it does get kind of cool in the winter, and a nice little shawl to put over your shoulders, especially early in the morning, because then it'll heat up in the day, so you really don't want anything too heavy. And what's really good for these is in a restaurant or an office, even in the summer, when you get underneath one of those AC vents, it can get very chilly and cold on your bare arm. So it's nice to have a nice, thin, lightweight shawl. Just go ahead and move my stitch markers so the next time we talk next week, you'll see how much progress I make on it. Oh, and here's the reverse side of it. I don't think I showed you that last time. But the reverse of this shawl, I believe it is a free pattern, is just all pearls. So the front, you're doing your knits and your lace work. So this is what the pearls look like. They have more of the bumpy stitches where the front is nice and smooth. I really prefer a lot of the front with the knits and the stockinette stitch. But on a shawl, a lot of times I like the nice smooth look to the front. Depending on what the yarn is, it kind of shows off the colors of the yarn nicely when you're just having all these knit stitches. I'm not a super fan of purling back and forth on the rows like that, but it's okay. Once you get going, you get used to it, and it's not that big of a deal. I did pick up my unicorn. This is the Floral Unicorn Embroidery Hoop by Jessica Anderson of cutescrafts.com. Okay, now I've done so much work on this. Ha ha ha. I got the purple flower with the little pink knots in the center. That's all I got. I was really hoping I was going to be picking it up and putting some good amount of work into it, but nope, not yet. Its time is coming, though. I can feel the itch to get back to the hand stitching. You know, when you're doing multiple crafts, you kind of go through these phases, even if they're different days, weeks, or months, or years. You go really crazy and just do like a whole bunch of embroidery, and the next thing you know, you're setting it aside and you're just doing knitting and you're not touching it again. You kind of need to have a few extra minutes to sit down to do the embroidery. It's a process for me. I have to go out and make sure, because I'm working on white and with the thread, I make sure my hands are nice and clean. I don't want to have any natural oils. You're always going to have natural oils, but I like to take any excess oils off, make sure my hands are clean. You don't want to touch, I personally don't touch any food when I'm embroidering. I keep my drink far away. I don't pet the animals or nothing like that. Pull out all your threads, so it's a bit of a process. I can pick up Robbie socks and knit for 5 minutes, but I don't pick up embroidery and just work on it for 5 minutes because I have more prep involved in it. And my final project is, since I'd finished the last hat, I needed to cast on another one. One of my go-to, I have 3 hats that I knit. I knit the Teenager Approved, this is the Bankhead, and then I also knit a Blueberry Waffle. And the Bankhead and the Blueberry Waffle are similar, but not quite the same. Those are basically my 3 go-to, because with the Bankhead, it's a free pattern. So what you're doing is you have this ribbing down here, and this is the part that goes around your head that's stretchy. Then at the part up here at the top of the crown of the head of the hat, it's a knit 4, purl 1. And it gives you just enough stretch that if you're not quite sure on the recipient's head size, it can stretch a little or it can pull in a little. And it's really good for young children, especially, you know, like that 5 to 8-year-old age, where sometimes their heads are growing fast and sometimes they're not. So this is a good hat that stays snug and also loosens up if it needs to. You haven't seen me knit on wooden needles before. These are bamboo, and they're from Clover. It's just something simple you can pick up at Michael's or Joann's. This is what I very first started knitting hats on, is the bamboo, because it's kind of a little bit of a grippy needle, so your stitches won't slide off as easily. And they say it's really good for beginner knitters because it holds it nice and grippy, as I said, and it takes a little bit of effort to get your stitches to slide, where like on the little cable here, you can see they slide really easy, but on here it's kind of more of a forced. And I have outgrown using the wooding needles because I like things that go really fast, but I needed a size 9, so that's the only one I had is in this bamboo. Because what I'm doing is I'm using this from Loops and Thread. It's a Snuggly Wuggly yarn. It's a lightweight size 3 in the color soft gray. This is 100% acrylic, but because it's a 3, Robbie Socks was a 1, the shawl was a 2, this is a 3. Your normal everyday like Red Heart yarn is a worsted, it's a number 4. And then you get into your really thick yarns, your bulkies and all that. So this is probably somewhere about in the middle. It's just a little bit thinner than normal yarns. So I decided, I wound up my ball on my little ball winder. As you can tell, my ball winder is giving me fits. And I go ahead and I split it in half. So when I'm knitting on this, I'm holding the 2 strands together. And it's just making my stitches and my hat a little bit thicker, which is going to make it a bit warmer for the person that I'm thinking about giving it to. I'll see how it turns out, and if it looks like it's going to fit the person I intend to give it to, then I will give it to them. Otherwise, I will sit it into my donation box, and it'll go to someone who really needs it. So either way, it depends on how it turns out. Like I said, it might not... It's hard to say when you're giving something to someone, whether you know them really well or you only know them a little. You're never really 100% sure. And for me, I'm always questioning, are they going to like it? Is it really something they're going to use? But that's how you do it. You just hold this together, and this makes it a bulkier yarn. So if you're knitting for someone who is in a really cold climate, it makes it a lot thicker for them and makes it, of course, warmer. And there's what the inside looks like. I think the ribbing on the inside here looks just as well, if not better, than the outside. My intentions was to flip it inside out and use this as the outside, but I forgot. But it's fine. It looks really good. You can see how the stitches just kind of slide up and blend into each other. Let me put my little marker in so I don't forget that this is where I left off this week. These are just little plastic stitch markers you can pick up at Michael's and Joann's. Don't forget to use your coupon. Save yourself a little bit of money. That's what they're there for. It's a bit of a tight fit in this bag, but it wouldn't fit in my normal hat bag. This is my old sock bag. You just have to be really careful when you zip these up that you don't catch any of your yarn in the zipper. Because if you can't get it out, you're going to end up cutting your yarn, or if it does get stuck and you get it out, you might have put a little rip into your yarn. That's it for me this week. Like I said yesterday, I'm trying to get into this new routine and figure out exactly how I'm going to work my schedule. So I've only worked on a few things here and there. I've spent a lot of time, like I had to get all those hats. I had to measure all the hats, get them listed in my Artfire shop, and then get a video of that going so everyone can see what they look like. And if you're not sure what I'm talking about, I'll go ahead and link to the video up in the iCard. You always have your normal every day, every week chores around the house. So I'm just trying to find my new rhythm. Everything's a little bit different now, but I'll settle in a couple weeks and everything will be fine. At least I didn't decide to make this change right around Christmas or something, or Thanksgiving, when everything's crazy to begin with. So that's it. Thank you guys for watching so much, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye.